So it's really critically important to understand as early as possible and align with the management team, what are the expectations for what good looks like, and then be able to find the right tooling, resources, whatever it might be, to be able to demonstrate that. The way that I think about self promotion, a lot of it has to do with um, really understanding how success is measured, which I think a lot of it comes down to impact and what the business is trying to do. So I think that's really valid and something to pepper into how you are optimizing your work.
Hey everybody, you're watching CareMinds podcast and I'm your host, Daniel. Look, I'm going to say it plain and simple. Tough times are here once again, unfortunately. And everybody has no choice but to absolutely focus on their personal brand and their career in order to provide for themselves, their loved ones, and support the community. Indeed, the search for effective advice on improving personal brand is at its all-time high, and rightfully so. With this episode, we decided to help our fellow product managers watching this with some advice from Ellie Littman, VP of Software Engineering at Modern Health. Her career path from a project manager to a VP of Engineering is a great, practical showcase that career advancements can be decoded and replicated. For those who are interested, you can check out the full episode with Ellie Littman on our channel, but here's some of the outtakes that we decided might be helpful for y'all. Today's episode is sponsored by the App Solutions, a healthcare software development company trusted by Google, Red Cross, and InterSystems. If your organization is looking to positively impact software development roadmap, the App Solutions is a great choice. You can delegate your product streams or augment your existing engineering team with qualified specialists. The App Solutions is capable of solving software engineering and interoperability challenges, setting up and maintaining compliant infrastructure, as well as designing and developing machine learning capabilities. If you're interested in learning how the App Solutions might add value to your business, click the link in the description below, mention the CareMinds podcast, and get a free project health check assessment. Given your mentorship experience, how would you define the challenges of career growth for technical product managers in medium-sized and large-sized companies, the types of companies you have experience working at?
So I think whether it's technical project managers, technical product managers, I do think at a lot of companies those are some of the least defined roles, or the ones that are going to be some of the smaller teams, and because of that there can be some early growth that you can really achieve really quickly, which is really great. But as structure gets introduced, I'd say that those organizations are often quite flat. And so because of that, growth opportunities can be a bit more challenging to navigate. And also if those roles are less defined or a career ladder is coming out later, than when you started the organization, for example, there could be a lack of alignment around what expectations look like at each level and also what growth could look like. So I would say it's really important to as early as possible really request some of that structure and those expectations so you can know what the growth opportunities look like and how you can navigate around them. So I think you'll need to work probably extra hard in those organizations, especially to show your value and your impact, and that can also be really hard when the company is just starting up. Especially I come from the startup space, so that's something that I think I could have a lot of experience, and you might not have all the tools you need to even demonstrate your impact. Maybe you don't have product analytics instituted yet, for example, and so being able to show the value of your work can be a lot harder. So it's really critically important to understand as early as possible and align with the management team, what are the expectations for what good looks like, and then be able to find the right tooling, resources, whatever it might be, to be able to demonstrate that.
Very good points. You were recently talking about transforming one's technical thinking into strategic thinking, attributing some of the challenges that people face within organizations career ladder wise. What are, in your opinion, the foundations of strategic thinking for self-promoting?
Yeah, so I think with self promotion, and I've done very lengthy talks on this, so I have so many thoughts. But the way that I think about self promotion, a lot of it has to do with um, really understanding how success is measured, which I think a lot of it comes down to impact and what the business is trying to do. So I think that's really valid and something to pepper into how you are optimizing your work. So think about, what business goals are you trying to achieve? Because that's going to demonstrate business value. But then also, how is success measured relative to that career ladder? And it's really, really hard to have, I'll say, aligned conversations with your management team on your growth if you don't have something to point at to show your agreements around expectations. From there, I would say once you have that understanding, would strongly recommend continuing to identify when you are showing that kind of value, when you are expressing those skills, and also, generally what your growth goals are. You should be doing these things regularly with your managers. That's the first level in which you need to be self promoting, letting them know all the great things that you're doing that are adding value to the business in the right ways. Secondly, I always say self promote at the department level. So, how is your work connecting back to value for your sub organization or your peers within your department? That way, that becomes increasingly more visible with other members of management, other peers that might be able to give feedback and can start to draw the story about how you draw the story together about how you are providing value and influencing within your broader community. And then I would say the third level of self promotion is at the company level. So, really, if we think about that same flow of influence and impact, being able to share how the work that you're doing is really driving the company ahead and finding those opportunities to present that to everyone. Those are also critically important. That's then also giving you more visibility with also senior leadership, maybe C suite, basically this entire chain of leadership and management. That's also the same chain that's going to be discussing your growth over time and improving your promotions. So be sure to be promoting through those groups and speaking their language as to how that's connecting to business value that they care about. And I think that also gives you opportunities to get sponsorship as well, get the feedback you need, so you can build those cases as well for growth.
I love that you were touching base on this. This sounds like a very holistic approach. I was particularly interested in asking about the aspect of communicating and influencing in the right way, of course, when it's aligned with the company goals and everything. When it comes to the upper management, the stakeholders, sometimes it's very hard to cut through the noise of the day to day. How do you do that efficiently? What are your go tos that typically work for you?
So I think if you want to, communicate and influence with other stakeholders or with senior leadership, I would try to make sure that you find those opportunities where you can work through a particular issue or conflict together, and really frame things in similar common language. And I think that's often where, especially cross functionally, there's quite a few misses and people don't understand the value or what others are optimizing for. So I think that as you approach interactions with other cross functional stakeholders, it's really important to acknowledge what are your shared goals, and that might be those top OKRs that maybe you're both driving towards. But commonly, we have these shared goals that we're trying to achieve. Maybe it's gaining more revenue or gaining more market share, right? We can all point to that and say, okay, that makes sense. We're all trying to do that. But then there's all these sub problems. And often the tension that might arise or a lack of understanding that can inhibit our influence comes from constraints or different individuals needing to optimize for additional goals within their departments they might be more accountable for. For example, in engineering, that might be human resources or the scalability of the system, the stability of the system. Those are things that I'm accountable for. But maybe on the sales side, for example, that's maybe they're really just trying to please customers and reach their sales quotas, which is totally reasonable. We're all trying to reach the same goals, but we're optimizing for different things. And so these differences can lead to tension. And so I think it's really good to really speak to what are the shared goals, understand the goals of the other individuals. What do they care about? What are their constraints? And really actually like give voice to those things. And that way, you can show up in a way that where you can basically attempt to speak their language. So you can describe impact or rationally work through something that maybe you have differing opinions on, in a way that's very, unemotional and is completely connected back to what are we trying to do on behalf of the business. And this is like a classic conundrum, I think, in my world, right? I am often trying to drive value via very technical initiatives that might not be well understood in terms of their value to other members of the company. And so it's really important to think about your audience and what do they care about? What are we all trying to do? So when I go and say, hey, we need to reduce our lead time to changes by investing in our CI/CD pipeline so it can be more. That doesn't mean anything to my peer group, and that's okay. But I can still have a thoughtful conversation with them and say, hey, I know you care about reducing costs and also increasing the speed in which we can build new products so we can accelerate our time to market for differentiated products. So we can, continue to ensure business continuity and be the leader in our space. All of those things will make sense to my peers. Those are all shared goals. And I can show my impact by saying, hey, here's how we were able to move these metrics in a way that ultimately enables these other areas of the business.
Thank you for watching this Care Minds podcast. What do you think? Was this helpful? Share your thoughts, your opinions in the comment section below. We're looking forward to receiving your feedback. Hit the like button if you found this episode useful. Please consider subscribing. It would help us to produce more content like this in the future. Until next time.